Welcome to the Wisepreneurs podcast, where women 60 and beyond redefine work with purpose and confidence. I'm Nigel Rawlins, your guide to building a resilient career through self-employment, consulting or new ventures. Each episode delivers practical strategies, expert insights and intellectual capital to master business, marketing and technology while staying mentally sharp and aligned with your goals. We'll explore networked entrepreneurship, authentic branding, AI-powered work, cognitive vitality and resilient transitions to unlock opportunities and create a future filled with impact. Join me to transform your experience into a thriving, purpose-driven career. This is Wisepreneurs. Let's get started. Welcome to episode 68 of the Wisepreneurs podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to chat with Kim Watty, a 66-year-old emeritus professor of accounting turned entrepreneur. After a distinguished academic career, Kim co-founded the Main Act with her daughter Prue to help women design purposeful retirements. Join us for an inspiring story of reinvention and community. Kim, welcome to the Wisepreneurs podcast. Could you tell us something about yourself and where you're from?
Yeah, I'm a 66-year-old semi-retired woman. I live down by the bay and love to be in the bay each morning. I'm a mum of 2 adult children and I am fortunate enough to be very close to my family and currently working with my daughter on a project which we hope we'll talk about a bit later on.
We will. So, which bay are you talking about?
Oh, Port Melbourne. So I swim in the bay each morning with the Port Melbourne Icebergers. I don't swim too far, about 1 kilometre is my limit, but this is not a competition for me. I've had enough of that in my other stages of my life. But we probably swim 6 of 7 days, rain, hail and shine, cold and hot, and I'm very proud I don't have a wetsuit, so I just get in there and swim.
In winter as well?
In winter as well.
Without a wetsuit?
It's fantastic. The endorphins go through the roof.
Yeah, they would. Now, for the non-Australian listeners, Melbourne is the capital of Victoria, which is in Australia.
Yes, excellent.
So tell me, you were an academic, so what was your study? If you could tell us something about that and something about your academic career, because you're now post-academic. So tell us something about what you did.
For the first, I did an accounting degree and then I went and worked as an accountant for about 10 years. Then I had children and I decided that academia might provide me with the flexibility I was looking for, which was really not right. But anyway, that's what I thought at the time. So I went back into working in academia, just 0.2, 0.4 as the children grew, 0.6 full-time. This is quite a traditional way for females in the academic environment in Australia. And I did my master's in accounting part-time while I was working and raising the children with my husband, John. And I did my PhD part-time, which I finished about 2005. So I was definitely in a different stage of life to some PhD candidates who come straight from one form of study to the next, but I was working, raising a family and studied accounting. I worked at RMIT University, the University of Melbourne, and finished my career at Deakin University, where I am currently an emeritus professor, which I'm very proud of for Deakin University. My teaching area was in management accounting, and I taught undergraduate and postgraduate. I taught in Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia and Japan over the years, and towards the latter 10 years of my academic career I was involved in leadership roles around Deputy Dean of the Faculty of Business and Law at Deakin University and chairing a number of academic boards and teaching and learning type committees. Less teaching in the later part and more sort of leadership roles. And my research area, which really gave me an opportunity to travel the world, to be able to present at research conferences, for which I was always very grateful, was in the area of accounting education. So it moved from graduate attributes, learning outcomes, technology, AI, and that type of thing. So that was my research area as part of my academic role.
So tell me, what's an emeritus professor?
Yeah. So emeritus professor is a title that's awarded to someone who has shown significant and sustained high quality activities in research teaching and in academic leadership. So it's a title that you can apply for when you retire from a university, and it goes to the council and through the Vice-Chancellor for approval. I'm very proud of that title, and it's something that I can use forever and a day.
Fantastic. That's wonderful to hear. So did you have to retire, or what happened there?
Yeah. No, I didn't have to retire. It's probably 2018, 2019. My mum wasn't particularly well, so I wanted to care a bit more for her. She wasn't living with me, but I wanted to spend a bit more time with her. So I think it would have been 18 and 19. I moved out of the dean role and back into my discipline of accounting in the school as a professor. And I moved to 3 days a week. And I decided in 2019, I really thought there was something else that I wanted to do outside of academia. I didn't really know what it was, but I felt, there was something more. So I formally resigned put in my resignation about mid-2019, and I formally left Deakin mid-2020 as COVID hit. So COVID wasn't around when I decided that I'd retire. And my husband, who was a wee bit older than me, we were going to do a lot of travelling and lots of things together. COVID hit, 2 or 3 years, started doing some other work, some courses and looking for other things, and found out about 2023, 24 that the more I was looking for was actually co-founding a business with my daughter aimed at helping women design their next best chapter with intention and purpose. So that's the company that my daughter and I have been working on in the last 2 years.
Now, that's an interesting move from, say, teaching accounting to your business, which is called The Main Act. But it's not about business, is it?
No, it's absolutely not. It's about supporting women to actually live their next chapter. So my daughter had created a couple of businesses. So for her, she's very much an entrepreneur. And the decision to do something together came over many months of thinking and different things that happened in our lives. So for someone who was a professor of accounting and is an emeritus professor to now be co-founding a startup with their daughter around supporting women to design their next and best chapter is something I would never have imagined I'd do. But I think this may be the more that I was looking for when I retired from academia. I closed one door, took a while for the new door to open, but I always knew there was something else I wanted to do, and I think this might be it.
Okay. So is that a feeling inside that you have that's telling you this is it?
It's absolutely a feeling inside. Great question, and yes, it is.
And I think that's the thing we have to listen to. One of the areas that I'm really excited about is the extended mind and listening to that internal feeling that you've got, that I think it's called interoception, and it does tell you something. And if you can hear it or listen to it and act on it, I think that's really important. And that sounds like what that was. Okay, your daughter is entrepreneurial and you've both decided to run a business. How did your accounting background look at that idea?
My husband, who passed away very recently in July last year, quite suddenly. So that's been a very sad time for my very close family. But in 2023, when we started talking about the Main Act, John, who was more of a practicing accountant, John would say, those that can do and those that can't teach, which really was a bit rude. But anyway, I took it on board. And John had also been Prue's accountant for the other business that she ran, an events company that she started in New York. The answer is John did a lot of the groundwork around setting up the company as a subsidiary of my daughter's established company. And it's now fallen to me, but I'm really not that interested in it. So I've convinced my daughter Prue that we should hire someone to do the books, because I'm not going back to that again. I did that for 10 years. I worked 30 years, 20 or 30 years. I taught. I want to focus on the other part of the business, which is the business development. John set us up, forever grateful, and we now have a small business accountant who helps us out. But I do keep the records in terms of income and expenses pretty accurately, so that's a help.
Oh, I think some of the accounting programs nowadays are just so fantastic.
Yes.
So you're using Xero or something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
I've gone to a really small one, a small Melbourne-based one, which I love. It's about half the price because I don't have any payroll or anything like that, and I don't collect GST. And it's a little ripper program. Again, it does most of what Xero does, so people are probably wondering what we're talking about. We're talking about online accounting programs for a moment anyway. Obviously, you understand business. John, your husband, obviously was very clear about that. So you must have some sense of what's working, and I don't know how to describe this, a sense that what you're doing is worth doing, but from a business perspective as well.
Yeah. What we're doing is worth doing because it feels right. And Nigel, you talked about that feeling, but that feeling of we're in the right place and what we're doing is needed comes from research that says if you pop in the browser retirement for women, 9 out of the 10 references will be around finances. So there's a lot of information out there about finances, and though I'm an accountant, we give absolutely no financial advice whatsoever. We leave that to the experts. So it feels right. The market tells us that there's not a lot in the area and in the manner that we're offering it. There has been a lot of interest. I think by the time this podcast is aired, I will have done a interview with a woman on Radio National, ABC, who contacted me and was very interested. They're doing a series on the good retirement. She's very interested in what we're doing and my story. We've done a couple of articles in online journals or online magazines. So there is interest there. We've had a couple of other podcast requests. So there's definitely interest for our story and what we're doing. And we honestly believe there is a need for it. We did a pilot program in January, which we ran and learnt a lot from. We're starting our first program in May, next week actually, May the 6th, and we're going to learn a lot and love working with women in that space. We will be donating 8% of our profit to organisations that support women, but I can assure you, Nigel, that is a fair way down the track. And we're not focusing on the dollars. Unfortunately, I'm in a position where I don't have to, and that is really important. The other thing is it's not a big capital investment from either of us. It's our time, and it's a minimal investment for resources and advertising and the like. So I'm, again, quite privileged to be in a position where we can actually start this business and see where it takes us.
Now, I think that's really quite important, what you've just said there. You've started off small. It's an area that you're both really interested in. There is a need for it. And you've been able to connect to the people who are searching for that. Now, obviously, not everybody can do such a course as yours. So let's start talking about that. What is it that you're actually doing? Tell me about the business, the name, and what it is you do. Stay inspired with the Wisepreneurs newsletter. Every week I share exclusive strategies on business, marketing and tech for women 60 and beyond, drawn from over 67 podcast episodes and 100 articles. Visit wisepreneurs.com.au to sign up and get my free career reinvention checklist today. Don't miss out.
The business is called The Main Act, and as a mother-daughter co-founders, there was a lot of discussion about what the business name should be. I thought we'd never agree, but fortunately we have a very, very strong relationship, my daughter Prue and I, and we work very well together and complement each other. I think I'm more the business side of things. She's definitely more the creative side of things. But the business, The Main Act, is set up as a space where women can come together to work through transitions in their lives. And the first transition we're working on is retirement. The next transition might be retirement and another cohort that looks at transitioning to solo living or transitioning to empty nesting or transitioning to a new career. But we decided to use retirement because that's what I'm living at the moment. And I feel quite authentic in talking about what I'm doing in retirement to help guide other women in their retirement. So the Main Act is the business, and the program that we can talk about is the Retirement by Design program. It's an 8-week program which is founded on the work of Evans and Burnett from the Stanford Business School. So they have a very strong research, evidence-based methodology which they have used over a number of years. So we are looking at that, tweaking it to the Australian environment, changing it to fit retirement particularly. But their life design course, which I have undertaken, is really the foundation for the Retirement by Design program. An 8-week online program at the moment, 1 hour a week. Weeks 1, 3, 5 and 7 are all about content, and weeks 2, 4, 6 and 8 is where the group comes together to integrate and reflect on what they've learned in the previous week and how that's impacted their life and how they're using the tools and techniques along the way that are based on life design. Also, every second week, weeks 2, 4, 6 and 8, Prue and I offer a one-on-one accountability call to the women. So just to have a one-on-one conversation to see how they're going. So it's very high touch, very hands-on, and that to us is very important. That's the model we have at the moment. The other thing we're currently offering at the Main Act is one-on-one coaching. So I've done a lot of coaching courses over the years, and my daughter Prue's just done the ICF coaching program, and I should know it, but I don't. So we also offer one-on-one coaching, which is separate to the Retirement by Design 8-week signature program.
So what you're telling me is instead of retiring and going playing golf or just hanging out down the beach or the cafes, you're putting a lot of time into helping other women come to terms with retirement. And look, you mentioned before you don't really need the money, which is helpful, I think, when you're starting out, because this is one of the biggest issues for people who've retired or women who've retired, is having enough capital to get started with something. What have you found? Obviously, you've got a design process there. What did you change from your January cohort that you did as a trial, and now this is the formal one? Is there much difference from that?
I think the main difference was really adding in the accountability call, because in the trial program, we felt that it was too easy. There's no homework, but there are prompts to do something between each week. And it was just too easy for the pilot program people to attend the content weeks, and then all of a sudden the next 2 weeks was upon them and not much had happened. And we didn't want to call it a coaching call. We wanted to call it an accountability call. So that's a strong word and it's not meant to be, but in some ways it's appropriate. So it's saying, have you filled in your journal? Have you done your reflection? And we're not saying every day you do this. It's just, have you thought about what we talked about in the content week and how it might impact your life? Because to be honest, Nigel, people are paying for the program. We want them to get a lot out of it. We believe in the program. So we can't guarantee success unless people engage with us, and that's really important. So we actually interview the people to come into this very small course to ensure as best we can that the characteristics of the women that are participating align with this really important mindsets of being curious and bias to action and reframing problems and trying things. It's really very important, because some people may think that you enroll in a course and your life design is fulfilled after 8 weeks, and life just isn't like that.
A couple of things I really liked hearing about how you design that course is where you've got some formal training and discussion, and then you've got the group coming back to discuss with each other. So what you've got is a supportive cohort that gets to possibly relate to each other, which is very important. One of the biggest problems I see out there, and I think it's very evident now, is a lot of online courses people don't finish. And I think I saw something on X this morning about, in Australia, we have our technical training courses. Only 13% of people finish a TAFE course. We're talking about the fact that some people do not finish courses that they start. Now, I've paid for a whole lot of courses that I think sound really good, but I haven't even started them, and I paid for them 2 years ago. Eventually, I may get around to it, and then I see another course and I buy that one too.
Yes, shiny things.
But the thing is, you're keeping it nice and short, 8 weeks, focused, and so I think that's got a better chance of working, hasn't it? It'll be exciting to see how this cohort finishes and where they go. So the other thing you've mentioned there is that you're quite careful about who you invite to the program. Was that a specific reason there?
Yes, because it is a small cohort and we really want women who are going to be, of course, respectful, and most people are respectful, but also, as I said, those really key mindsets for life design around being curious, open to failure, willing to participate, i.e. bias to action, not inaction, reframing problems. It's too late, I'm already set in my ways. No, it's never too late. The future is what you create it to be. So it's always difficult to say no to people, but it is worse if you have a small group of people and don't have a similar curiosity, because we don't want everyone thinking the same, because the challenge with women is always where there is great debate and interest and challenge and that type of thing. So we really believe in the power of women coming together in a thoughtful manner and the power of that particular group. And that group can be undermined really quickly if there are one or two people that just don't have a similar approach to the 8-week program. So again, it's not easy to say no to people, and we do it very rarely, but we absolutely have a discovery call with every person who participates because we want to ensure that alignment of thought.
That's very important. What was I going to say? I had something in my mind. Oh, I was going to say, so where are these women based? Are they Australian?
At the moment, they're Melbourne-based because we are trying to have a couple of catch-ups. So we thought with this cohort we would make them all Melbourne-based. It's online, but we will have a couple of face-to-face opportunities for the group, which we think is really important. But Nigel, again, in a small business that's starting, you also limit your reach if you make it just Melbourne, and most of it is going to be online. And to be quite frank, if we are as successful as we'd like to be in helping women, there's nothing to stop us going more global. That's just the way of the world and what technology allows us to do. But we still want to just keep control of what's going on at the moment. At the moment, it's Melbourne-based women, mainly aged between, say, 45 and 65, 70, but we have someone on our waiting list for July who is 78 and said to me, Kim, it's not for me. I'm pretty settled. And I said, you could have another 20 years to go. Do you want to think about planning what the next 20 years might be like with more intention and more purpose? So that's the cohort at the moment. I think it's roughly 45 to 68, a few people. And there are people contemplating, planning, and just retired at the moment. They're the group. And we want to mix it up. We don't want to have just everyone who's been retired for 10 years or everyone that's 10 years out from retirement. But I was reading something, it's a great quote, and I'm not going to be able to remember it exactly, but it was something like, when is the best time to start planning for your future? And, of course, the best time is right now. And it doesn't matter whether you're 20, 30, 50 or 100. It's right now.
Yeah, that's really a wise thing. I keep thinking, now that I'm 69, and I'm thinking, wow, if you're 40 and you're contemplating your future, because one of the big issues is relationships in your network. I noticed that when I first quit teaching over 25 years ago, there was a person I knew who had retired in business, and he'd lost contact with all his business people, and then they retired as well. And that's the biggest danger, I think, is if you decide you want to do something when you're older and you've let your network go, and they're not different ages and they've all retired, all you can do is catch up for coffee, but it's not that helpful.
No, there's research out there, of course, that talks about the importance of maintaining community and social networks in some way. And the research we looked at said 60% of women didn't plan for their retirement and they regret not planning for it. But again, I just want to reiterate, and we talk about this in the course, that the definition of retirement, of stepping back, isolation, those types of words, just doesn't fit with the sort of women that we're dealing with. They want to do different things. It mightn't be a 50-hour week and you're paid at X, Y, Z. It doesn't really matter. But if you can unhook remuneration from your work and not feel locked into that identity, it actually opens up the thought that work can be creative work. It can be some paid work. It can be volunteer work. It can be board work. It can be community. It can be caring for your family. It can be caring for your friend's dog. It can be whatever you choose it to be. And for me, that's the beauty of this stage of my life, where I have more control about the things I want to do. And we talked before about, and I thought it was a great question about how do you feel about this new business that you're creating? And I said, it just feels right. And, that sense of asking women to think about what brings them joy can be quite challenging because they haven't actually really thought about that in that way. What brings you joy? How do you play? Those sorts of questions are really helpful. Yeah, I was reading a book around Ikigai, which is the Japanese philosophy of life. And, retirement is not a word in the language in Japan because people go on and they live. There's a lot of blue zones in Japan and they live a long life. And retirement is not something that is in their discourse. And as people get to different stages of their life, they do less paid work, but they absolutely have a lot of community. They work in community, they exercise, mild exercise, none of this HIIT or killing yourself. There's mild exercise, lots of walking, etc. It's quite interesting to think this word retirement has such negative connotations in our, I would say in the Western world, and that's a generalisation, but I feel comfortable saying it, that people sometimes get a visceral reaction when they have to say, I'm retired, because they think people are going to ask that question, which is, well, what do you do all day?
Exactly.
With that rising intonation. So, what do you do all day?
That's the thing that's just popped into my head. I was thinking, if you weren't involved in the main act, what would you be doing?
Okay. So I did the Australian Institute of Company Directors program, and I was on about 4 or 5 boards, a lot of work, doing a lot of board work. It wasn't that more I was looking for, as I said. I retired from full-time work thinking there was more. And then what would I be doing? I don't know. I'm now on 3 boards, and they're mainly education related, which I do enjoy. That's my board work. I love exercising most of the time and my swimming. Had John still been with me, we would have done a lot more travel. We had travelled a lot in the last decade or so, and we probably would have continued that. So I don't think I'm able to answer that question. I just don't know. I would find something, but what I'm doing now just feels so right.
Yes, you can see the motivation in you. You look like a young person. And I think that's the energy that comes from doing something that feels right and that you've got the support for doing it. So working with your daughter, that must be wonderful too.
It is. It was interesting. We were speaking to someone else who asked the question, now, how do you work together? And my daughter had said the question was coming up, and she's very thoughtful. And she said, Mum, I might mention about that feedback. And she's right, because I tell her one of my many failings in life is around feedback. I don't think I receive it well, and I'm very conscious of it. So she said to me, working with Mum, sometimes I can give Mum feedback and she doesn't always take it on board and gets defensive. And I said to Prue, that's quite right. Working with you, you also very much think everything that you say is correct. So we have a number of conversations around some of the wording or some of the documents that we want to share with people. And sometimes it gets a bit quiet, but we are very good at bouncing back and saying, we'll leave that for now. Let's get on to the next bit. So I think there's a mutual respect, and I'm very cognizant of her creative abilities, and she's aware of my abilities, having been in education for 30 years, of constructing courses and developing things for participants. It's working well. It's been nearly 18 months, 2 years, and we're still doing it. And I feel quite privileged to be able to work with her. It's a good dynamic also, Nigel, because cross-generational thinking, cross-generational learning is really important. So I see things differently to Prue, and it's really interesting to share that with people. I quite like that. I think that's a really strong part of the main act, that we respect difference, and we're also able to contribute from different generations about how we've dealt with different challenges in our lives, let's say.
The other interesting thing I see there too is from 18 months ago, you're not the same person, and the learning that's occurred. So tell us something about that.
That is interesting. I'm not the same person. I suppose I'm not. I think of my characteristics. I am a lifelong learner. I've always enjoyed learning. I generally have a positive attitude and a pretty high energy, which is genuine energy. I can also acknowledge that things aren't always tickety-boo and you have to deal with life's complexities. I'm not really sure how I'm different. I'm definitely more aware of startup businesses and the challenges. When I'm starting to get a bit concerned about something, Prue is very much able to say, just hold your nerve, Mum, it'll come through. Before every major breakthrough, and I know this, I've read it, before every major breakthrough is that feeling of, that visceral feeling of, my gosh, what are we doing? I must say, given her experience in founding businesses prior to this one, that's been absolutely fantastic. So not sure how I'm different. I might have to take that one on board.
I was thinking, what things have you had to learn that you didn't use when you were at the university?
Well, I think the different sorts of things I'm reading. So I'm not reading accounting journals. I am reading literature around the 5 a.m. club, ikigai, mindfulness, journaling, trusting your vision, working with women. So I'm looking at a whole different body of literature than I was 5 years or 3 years ago. So that's absolutely true. I'm definitely more thoughtful in terms of how I'm living my life. That's very different. I do journal now, not as often as I'd like, but I'm much better. I do meditate. I do yoga. I wouldn't have done any of those things 5 years ago. So there is a difference, yeah. I swim now, which I hadn't done previously. So it's a different kind of genre of things that I'm looking at than I was when I was working in academia.
Yeah, you are a different person.
Yeah.
I've been in business now, running this marketing services company for 25 years. I find reading anything about business really boring.
Yeah, good.
Anything about I do read some marketing books, and I'm thinking, nah, that's just repeating the same old crap. And same with a lot of strategy, except for Peter Compo's book, which I really love. And I spoke to Peter Compo on the Wisepreneurs podcast about strategy. He doesn't like that word at all. He talks about emergence and things like that, and aspiration and bottlenecks. It's a more practical way of looking at stuff. His was fantastic, and really, again, I get those internal feelings, just like I have with The Extended Mind, another author, Luc P. Boudin, that I've been reading about cognitive productivity. I'm 69 and getting really excited about this stuff.
Yes, yeah.
So what books have really excited you the most? You mentioned Ikagi.
Oh, yes. Robin Sharma's The 5 a.m. Club I really enjoyed, and I quite like listening when I'm out and about in the car. So I'm currently listening to The Wealth Money Can't Buy by Robin Sharma, and I'm almost finished that. I'm just looking, there's 3 hours left. It's probably been about 8 hours. I love that. I'm up to 82 different things to think about in your life. I do read a few novels every now and again, Helen Garner, but I've read the book called Superfans. I can't remember the author. Did quite a bit of reading around story brand and brand script. So to be honest, when I go through that list, Nigel, I have absolutely changed 180, if not 360 degrees in terms of the type of reading that I now do.
So a mix of fiction and some non-fiction?
Yeah, mainly non-fiction. It's mainly related to fiction, yeah.
And are you reading on a Kindle or real books?
I have mainly maybe 70% real books and 30% is my Audible when I'm walking. I love that because I can put something on, and if I actually get into a state of flow, I can just keep walking, and before I know it, I've walked for an hour and a half rather than 20 minutes. But I'm absolutely committed to just starting because I know how important it is. Don't really want to walk after dinner, put on the shoes, headphones, get out the door. If it's 20 minutes, it's 20 minutes more than I would have done. If it's an hour and 20 minutes, woohoo, I could have done. I'm really happy with that. Quite like Audible. I know not everyone does. Don't like Kindle. But yeah, quite like Audible at the moment.
And we should say that you're very lucky living in Port Melbourne because you've got a beautiful beach walk that goes for miles. You can go all the way down to Brighton, I think, can't you?
Absolutely, you can. Very nice, yeah.
But one thing I've had to do lately is when I go for my walks is not listen to something. Actually listen to my feet tapping on the ground or the birds or the wind. I live on a bay, but I have to walk on roads and along a cliff top and a bit. But it's still lovely. I love seeing the water. But I've had to stop myself listening to podcasts all the time.
I love that. I love that because I have felt the same. And the last 6 months, I walk for my morning coffee. Got a great coffee shop that, thank goodness, opens at 6 a.m., which is just fabulous for the community. And I absolutely do not have anything in my ears for that morning walk. And what a difference that makes. It's amazing. So the Audible is usually the evening walk that can be from any time between 4 and 6. I'll head out, particularly as I live a solo life now, so I can eat when I choose to and walk when I choose to. But my morning walk is all about nature, the birds, the smell of the ocean, and my very favourite coffee in the morning, which is worth walking for.
Surprisingly, we have a coffee shop near me. So I'm in a little country town right down the end of a long road near the bay, and just around the corner from us, we have a little coffee shop. Somebody from Brunswick moved down here and set up a little coffee shop, and we've got a beautiful gelato shop. Now, anyone who wants to come to there has to drive quite a while to get there. Obviously, the locals nearby all go to it. We seem to have a lot of housing near here. But yes, having a good coffee shop, but gee, having a gelato shop is really good too.
Agreed.
So coffee is very important. And the funny thing is, I talked to him because I was in Japan about a month or so ago, and I had the most fantastic coffee in a little Japanese cafe somewhere, and I think he made it with a drip system. So I told my local guy, and he said, I'll make you a drip coffee, and it was fantastic. And, nice. I was in there the other day, and I noticed he's got the same drip machine that I've got.
You'd save yourself $6 every morning.
Yes. I thought, bugger that. Yeah, it's crazy. All right. Okay, retirement by design. What advice do you give to women about retiring? And when? When should you start thinking about it?
Yeah, I think we chatted briefly before we started taping about 62% of women wish they'd planned for retirement, so they felt a bit lost and a bit fearful of what retirement might hold. And there was another statistic that said 1 in 2 wish that they had planned earlier for their retirement. When is retirement? Whenever it suits you, because retirement isn't about finishing work. It's about taking more control of the different activities that make up your life. And I think there does come a time where financially if you're fortunate enough, there can come a time where financially you do have a little bit of flexibility in terms of how you fill your days. It doesn't have to be remunerated. And I think that's very important. So what we say to women is difficult to say in a few sentences, but I think the fundamentals are that now it's your time to take control of what your next chapter might look like. And it doesn't mean that the last 40, 50 years haven't been interesting and fulfilling, but it just means that you have the opportunity to take more control of what the next 10 years, 15 years might look like. And that control comes from thinking differently and designing the next stage of your life with that intention and purpose, which is really very important, because you don't come out of the 8-week program with your life designed for the next 20 years. You come out of it. We actually do 3 odyssey plannings at the end of the program. So we odyssey plan for 3 different lives, and you can look at how life might look with no constraints, full constraints, and medium constraints. So after the 8 weeks, you come out with a better way of thinking about life and understanding a bit more about yourself. And we will do some odyssey planning, and you will come out with a design that you think could work for you. And then in a few months' time, you go back and have another look, and you add to it and you change it, and you say this worked or it didn't work. But I think it's giving women the confidence and the tools to be able to do this sort of work, but also the confidence in themselves, which some women don't always have. Some people have said to me, I don't think I could do that 8-week course. I say, my goodness, you're curious, you're intelligent. Why on earth would you think that? Oh, it sounds like it's out of Stanford. I said, absolutely not. You're a smart woman. So it gives them the tools to be able to review their life as they move through it. And again, people who think that after 8 weeks your life design is completed aren't being realistic, because life throws up lots of unexpected challenges along the way and opportunities. We're very positive too. We look for the great opportunities.
You mentioned a word there, confidence, and I must admit I've heard that, and it scares me when I hear highly intelligent women say to me, you've given me the confidence, and I'm thinking, I'm some dumb bloke. I'm not as smart as you, but they will tell me that I help them with some confidence, just like it's very obviously you're going to be very supportive and give them the confidence they need. But why do women say that they lack the confidence when, you look at their lives and what they've done and you think, unbelievable. I never did half of that.
Yeah, I think it's embedded in our social structures and the way the business world works. And I think it is changing, but women remain in the service industries, in education, in social services, in childminding, etc. There is structural variation between the genders. There's no question about that. There are more men on boards than there are women, and there are more men in the top 100 income earners than there are women, and that's no reason that should happen other than the opportunities that they've been able to enjoy along the way. So there's a structural difference that I think keeping women in their place is too strong, because I certainly think that there is opportunity for women to move in any direction they choose. But I do think there are structural differences in context, in the environment, and certainly in business, where women are not necessarily encouraged to recognise their own abilities and to actually move forward, move up, put themselves forward. There's evidence to suggest that. So I agree with you. When this woman said, I'm not sure I have the confidence, I was absolutely shocked, and I said, don't do the program if you choose not to. That's your call, but please don't do it because you think you don't have the ability to do it. And I said, my goodness, you could contribute so wisely to the conversation.
That's it. Wisely can contribute, because that's what age brings us, that wisdom. We call it crystallised intelligence, that deep, with a lot of tacit knowledge there that we don't always recognise what we know. Okay, so tell me about the main act and how people can find out more about you, where they may be able to read something about the main act and, the next cohort that's coming up, because obviously this one's going to run.
Yep. So our website is www.themainact.com.au. We have an Instagram page that you can find us. The website, I think, is the one to go to. I will be posting on the website references to the couple of articles that we've had published, and also I will be putting a link on next week to the interview that I did with Tegan Taylor on the ABC Radio National. So I think our website is probably the place to go. The website also talks about our contact details, so Prue and myself, and I'd be very happy for anyone to drop me an email. I'm just Kim at themainact.com.au, and Prue is similar, but I'd be happy to hear from anyone. So we have our autumn cohort, which is starting on May the 6th, and then in July we will start our winter cohort, and the intention is to have a spring cohort also. And Nigel, we might think about reviewing some of the structure based on this, because we have had, I must say, a number of people who said we'd love to do it, but I'm off travelling to far-flung places and I can't commit to 8 weeks. So we actually are thinking of how we can possibly repackage it so that 8-week weekly commitment isn't necessary. And while we do record the sessions for those who are part of the group who can't make it, people like to be involved and we want them to be involved too. So at the moment it's 8 weeks. We may continue that with winter. We may chunk it into 4 2-week parcels. To be decided, but we want to respond to the market consistently and continuously along the way.
That's all part of that learning. You didn't mention LinkedIn. You're on LinkedIn, aren't you?
Oh, I am on LinkedIn, and so is the main act. So I'm on LinkedIn, Kim Watty, and the main act is also on LinkedIn, yes.
That's great. Now, is there anything we haven't covered as yet that you'd like to talk about?
No, I think we've covered lots, Nigel.
We have.
I think it's been a really interesting conversation. So there's nothing extra that I'd like to add. I really enjoyed the questions that you asked. Some of them I'll go away and think about too.
Thank you, Kim, for joining us. That's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Nigel. It's been my pleasure.
That's all for today's Wisepreneurs podcast. Age is no barrier when you're a wisepreneur crafting a purpose-driven career. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe, leave a review and share it with your network. Visit wisepreneurs.com.au to join my newsletter for exclusive strategies and ideas, and connect with me on LinkedIn for more insights. I'm Nigel Rawlins, and I'll see you next time to keep building your future with impact.